leave you with the amortization extension. Just to give you a feel, there's been over 50 local units of government of all sizes, again, that have enacted this type of approach. You know, again, it's not one size fits all. Not everybody gets 5 years. Some get a couple, some get a little bit more. It's based on the unique factors in their plan. But it makes a lot of sense, especially when you're, you know, looking at inflation and things like that, and some of the things that we just maybe didn't even have as much on our radar even 3 months ago, and the world has changed already in that time. So that was everything that I had prepared for you this evening, but I'm glad to answer any questions that you might have about any of this, as I'm sure Mike would as well. Put them on the spot.
Questions for Mike or Mike?
I have one in the general proposal. This is to Mike Burns. My concern is being able to fund the liability and ensure adequate cash flow to maintain city services. Do we not have a pretty good cash flow today? That if it was that case, and so I'm a little concerned.
Sure.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so the reason we bridged down when we did a couple of years back with the labor contracts was because there was a concern based off those evaluations, closing the plan and bridging down. There was a concern that if you looked at our projected contributions, we were literally in a position where we were contributing close to 1/3 of our general fund dollars, the equivalent to 1/3 of our general fund dollars to pension debt. By us bridging down and closing the plan, that's significantly reduced. But the biggest concern I have for the reason for doing this is it's not necessarily today. My concern is if the rate of return keeps continuing to get lower. Can you talk about that briefly? But if the rate of return gets lower, that means we have to pay more, which then that's where the contribution, the cash flow issues become a concern.
Because in here you say have fluctuations to the rate of return, stock market declining.
There's a number of
There's
factors.
going to be a lot of factors, and
Right.
you can see what's happened in the last.
Yeah, there's a number of factors that could change that. However, which is why I asked to extend this over 5 years to help kind of buffer some of that. But the fact of the matter is the path that we are on now, we're going to continue doing. It's just, if we extend the amortization by 5 years, it kind of buffers us in case the rate of return, let's say we see a 1% drop in the rate of return. I don't think that's going to necessarily happen, but it could be an issue. Or also, I mean, the other thing too is if we have another 2008 market crash, those are going to be things that are going to significantly impact us as to what we owe. And what I'm trying to do is just kind of buffer that as we go forward.
Because I know you made an extra payment to it this year, even though it doesn't show.
No, they won't show until the next actual. Yeah, it'll show the next actual.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, go ahead.
No, to add back on page 10, I mentioned all the assumptions, and I neglected to mention this one. So investment rate of return is a significant assumption that is used. So, that's just frankly the expectation of, you send over the money to us over in Lansing along with everybody else. How much money are we expecting that to earn, in a globally diversified portfolio on an annual basis? 10 years ago, the expectation of that was 8%. That was the standard everywhere. Today, it's 7.35%, so it's come down twice, and there are incremental changes, but if you expect, even a 1/10% less from investments, so the money for the pension comes from the city, from the employees, and investment income. And if there's a decrease in the assumption that's going to come from investments, then that means a little bit more comes from one of those other two parties. When the employee contribution is fixed at 5, the only party remaining is the city. The city deals with that increase. There's been some really good returns the last couple, 2-3 years. And there's also the feeling, if you watch the business news channels, that the market is at a very high level. And I get chills when I hear them say, well, a correction is inevitable. When's it going to come? It's not if, it's when. And then this year started, and then, my goodness, now, now we're in it, we're right now, and who knows how the year is going to end. I saw crazier things in 2020, a big dip and an amazing recovery. So who knows at this point? But there is concern about the amount of risk that any pension plan portfolio has to take to achieve a higher rate of return in an environment where, your treasury bond yields are very, very low. So, the stock market is at a very, very high level, and the question is asked, well, how much higher can it go? And no one knows the answer to that, but, then things back down a little bit. So we have a globally diversified portfolio, knowing that at any moment in time, one asset class is going to be down, but another asset class is going to be up. So you want all things in balance, and the target assumption is 7.35% growth, and we've hit that now solidly over the last 10 years, but there continues to be a focus by the MERS board, the state legislature, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, the federal arm, GASB, talking about investment rates of return and what is the reasonable level, and all public sector pension plans are moving to a more conservative position, which I can appreciate. When you move to a more conservative assumption position, it forces contributions to the plan to go up. So again, to echo what Mike had shared there, knowing that there are changes that have taken place in the past, that does not mean that changes will not take place in the future, but I'd be remiss to say there will not be changes in the future, and the system continues to reevaluate and evolve to be, to make sure that promised benefits can be paid. And so this is a way to be proactive, in anticipating those things. And I think, as Mike said, putting in almost like a buffer, hey, if you get after it today, and then maybe you need to take a break for a couple years, or you get to a fully funded position, and or you're overfunded a little bit, you have a little bit of a cushion against adverse experience. That is the biggest challenge with defined benefit plans. You're defining the benefit the individual gets, but the contribution is unknown because every unique person, may live this long. We don't know what they're going to, make at retirement. So you cannot pinpoint exactly how much money you need to pay until you look in the rearview mirror and that person is paid, and then you say, did we have enough money set aside? Yes, we did. Well, they lived another year longer. We needed a little bit more. So it's a moving target, and that's the nature of defined benefit and the challenge with defined benefit, really.
Any other questions? All right, thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any questions on the extension?
I kind of like the idea.
Yeah, I think Mike's done a fantastic job being calculated and aggressive and knocking down an inherited problem.
My boiled down synopsis is we're trying to lower our monthly payment, but we still want to make the higher monthly payment, but we're not obligated to make it.
Right.
And you've got that little bit of cushion.
Right.
If something does go south and we need it, we've got it. So it's kind of.
Just a fun question, is the state of Michigan's retirement obligation fully funded? That's funny,
It's on the record. No, they are not.
I didn't think so. That's why they required of us.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm not the state, though. I'm not.
I know you're not. I wish the senator was still here, because she was pointing out cities don't play by the rules. You don't even use the rules you make us follow. What are they gonna do?
Motion to approve the extension agreement with MERS.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll support.
Any other discussion? Sue?
Mayor DeVore,
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl.
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic.
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers.
Yes.
And Councilmember Groves.
Yeah.
All right, well, that takes care of old business number C2. Thanks, Mike. Dennis, LCTV recommendations. New business number A.
Greetings. Dennis Kent, 1700 Faith Drive, Lowell. I am the chair of the Lowell Cable TV Board. First of all, I'd like to thank all the board members for their time and commitment to this process. And we've got it kind of down to a science, or maybe an art, and it goes pretty smoothly now. There's a few of us that have been involved for quite a few years, but there's a couple of newer ones on too. I'd also like to thank the applicants for the effort that they made to fill out the applications to request the funding. So I guess what I'll do, if your pleasure, I'll just go through and read the ones that we're recommending for your approval. That's our task, is to recommend for your approval some grants within the available balance, which is also affected by the market. Market was okay last year. So let me just go through a couple of them, or I'll just go through and listen. Not too bad. It's on your memo, or in your agenda. We have the City of Lowell administrative expenses. We have City of Lowell front door replacement at 325 West Main, which is the museum. We approved that. That was $25,000. Fallsburg Historical Center's climate control, roughly $2,000. Flat River Outreach Ministry marketing project is what it says here, but as we read through that, I think they misstated what it was. It's really replacing their food storage, and we've done that a couple of times, and that meets the criteria. So we approved that, or recommended that. The skate park renovation. That's the largest single request this time. We had a presentation earlier on that. We did agree to that. We're kind of recommending that maybe the city hold on to that until all the funds are raised for the park, but that's your discretion, however you want to manage that. Fire department body armor. Historical museum history project. We funded both of those. Those are not real large requests. Old area arts council technology upgrade, 2,600 there. Lowell Police Department BOLA wrap system. It's kind of an alternate restraint system. About 10,000 there. Open table to go containers. That's the meals that are provided up at the church up there on Lincoln Lake. It was a fairly small request. We recommended that. We provided them some funding in the past. Virgin's Township handicap access to their new building. We recommended that. YMCA of Greater Grand Rapids. We have a small amount there. It was much less than what was requested because most of what was requested was basically paying staff, and that's excluded from what's acceptable in the grant process. And there were 3 others that also didn't make the recommendation. One, Baum Township Agricultural Museum, which was kind of an interesting project. But is unfortunately outside the limits of the grant. We're in the 2 townships, the Lowell, Virgins, and the city, so we couldn't entertain that one. Lowell Chamber Foundation basically was, again, essentially paying the artists as opposed, so that didn't really meet the guidelines either. And the Lowell Youth Sports Foundation, we were looking at. This was going to be a small part of a multi-million-dollar, softball field, baseball field upgrade, and because they had so much farther to go with raising funds, and there wasn't really a specific, item they were asking for. We turned that down this time. Not that we wouldn't entertain that in the future again, but it looked like it was just, there was a lot of work to do, and I didn't think ours would contribute that much. And our funds are limited anyway, and we've spent pretty much most of them. So this is what we are recommending to the council, and I'll be happy to answer any particular questions you have.
questions for Dennis?
I just want to make clarification. One of the things that we decided we were going to do this year is we're going to pledge that money. We're going to have it here setting like 30,000 to the skate park, but that gets them based on them getting their fundraising. Same way with the stairs. I'm quite sure the DDA and everybody's going to kick in, but they're pledges until such time as they get the rest of the money. That way, if it's not met, then it'll go back into the fund for next year or whatever. So it's kind of a terminology we changed a little bit.
And the sports complex can come back, right? Once
Oh,
they have
definitely.
Anything
the
can
rest
come
of the
back.
funding lined up.
They had $2 million of a $5 million potential project, and it's just hard to give them 20 grand or whatever they were asking for front without knowing where it was gonna go at this point.
For sure.
Even with the, like the showboat, for example, we funded that over a number of years, and each time that was sort of targeted to a specific item within the, within the bigger picture.
All right, any other questions for Dennis or Jim? Motion to approve the LCTV recommendation,
I'll make that motion.
Support.
discussion, none, Sue?
Councilmember Salzweedl?
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic?
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers?
Yes.
Councilmember Groves?
Yes.
And Mayor DeVore.
Yes.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you.
Now Bob can hit send.
Already did.
Item B, rezoning of 115 Riverside, ordinance 22-1.
As part of the redevelopment of the soon-to-be former city-owned property at 115 Riverside Drive, parcel needs to be rezoned from a public facility, PF, to C2 Central Business District. At the February 14th Planning Commission meeting, they made a recommendation to the City Council to rezone the property from PF to C2. In the packet is a memo from Andy Moore explaining this. I don't know if Marty has anything to add from the Planning Commission.
We discussed it pretty good. We can build back on that footprint as far as we're concerned. Being a downtown building, it can build right up to the edge of the sidewalk. There's no setback requirements for it, so we decided that it met all the criteria, and we changed it from PF to C2.
All right, any other questions for Marty? Mike? Motion to approve ordinance 22-1.
I make that motion.
I'll support.
Discussion? None, Sue?
Councilmember Yankovic?
Yes.
Councilmember Chambers?
Yes.
Councilmember Groves?
Yes.
Mayor DeVore?
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl?
Yes.
Dan, your supervisor.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Several years ago, as you're aware, the City of Lowell received a stormwater asset management and wastewater grant, a SAW grant from the state of Michigan. The grant was utilized to review our stormwater system and our sanitary sewer system, looking for problem areas, and then to develop an asset management plan and program to continue monitoring and maintenance and improvements of each system. Our approved plan and program are on file with Eagle. A simple and effective maintenance program is to clean and observe the system from the inside. In 2017, the SAW grant allowed the city to clean most of our sewer lines and videotape the areas of suspected issues. The cleaning has helped to greatly reduce calls from residents and businesses about sewer backups in our lines. We're starting to find those that are starting to creep up again on us in certain areas, and we have a company come in and clean those lines. They did that last Friday. They'll probably be coming in again another week or so in areas that we are starting to see problems. The original cleaning videotape has helped us come up with our current improvement plan that we're currently working through. This plan includes the repairs we did last year on Foreman Street, the upcoming Monroe Street project with the Kent Street problem area to get resolved, and then next following year to be the Washington Street project. In order to keep our system functioning, properly, we'd like to work towards cleaning the entire system again over a 3-year period. Again, this is in accordance with our asset management plan. We divided the system into 3 quadrants, spread it out. We received a quote from Plumbers Environmental Services for the cleaning of all the lines, and they've broken down the cost based on pipe size. They estimate the cost to clean our entire system of approximately 98,000 linear feet of pipe of different sizes at about $124,155. We are interested in start this process this spring, beginning with the sewer mains on the side streets off of Monroe and Washington, so we can see what we have there as we do the major street projects. And if we see something that there's an issue on the side streets, we take care of it while we're doing the street projects. That's the idea behind it anyway. Then stay on the east side of Flat River. Current fiscal year, we budgeted $65,000 for cleaning and videotaping. What we do is clean, and then if we discover there's an issue through the cleaning process, then we will videotape the lines. We're not going to videotape everything. But we get things cleaned and looking good. And again, while it's almost $125,000, that'll be spread over 3 years.
We budgeted 65 this year for it?
Yes, sir.
I like it when we do it because we find issues we didn't know we had.
Yep.
That's how we determine where we have water coming in, going to the waste treatment, all because of this program. So this program, yep, it's expensive, but man, does it work good.
Sure does. All right, any questions for Dan? Yes, Jim?
I have one as usual. One thing I noticed is the price of $124,155, and I know we've had a long-standing relationship with Homer's Environmental. It is a lot of money. I am a little concerned that we only got one bid, and I know there's others out there that can possibly perform the task. I'd like us to consider down the road looking at some other options, not only just for this particular project, but other ones going forward as well. I'm going to include this with the rest of the board, but just to bring it to our attention, it is a lot of money, and I'd like to consider other sources down the road. That's it.
That wasn't a question.
It was a statement.
Raise your voice at the end.
Council comments at the end?
No, no. At the end of your
No, I
statement.
agree. So I'm just saying in general, so.
Motion to approve the plumber's quote over 3 years.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Any other questions for Dan? Sue?
Councilmember Chambers,
Yes.
Councilmember Groves,
Yes.
Mayor DeVore,
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl.
Yes.
And Councilmember Yankovic.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan. Board commission reports. Cliff?
Nada.
Jim?
I have none.
Leah?
I've got Chambers tomorrow. I just wanted to extend a thank you for the self-nod on the skate park. I'm really looking forward to seeing what develops.
Mark?
Planning commission got canceled, I guess, for next week. I'm sitting in for Jim on Tuesday night at Light Power.
All right, DDA is canceled as well, and the fire authority is Thursday. Jim and I were talking last week before about what he mentioned earlier about going through some of these agreements and seeing how antiquated they are. So we're going to start with the fire authority. When it was formed, it was 15 guys. 15 guys and 300 calls a year. Now you're 28, 29 and some full-timers and over 1,000 calls for service. So it'll be fun to look at that and see what changes we can make. Mike, city manager report.
Yes, couple items. Just to update you real quick on the River City cannabis issue. Since last council meeting, I notified you that day we had cited them. Since that day, we have had no odor issues at the site. They were sent a certified letter last week. They needed to complete two things. They needed to modify they were looking at making changes to their odor mitigation plan. They need to resubmit to Andy a new odor mitigation plan. And they need to do two things. The first thing they need to do is they need to retain the services of an industrial hygienist to determine where the odor is actually emanating and leaving the site. The second thing they need to do is as they develop their new mitigation strategies, they need to have an expert, third-party expert sign off on it. So, and they're also to provide weekly reports. So they did provide a weekly report last week, so they are working towards those steps. So as I said, we haven't had any issues since the last time we talked to them. Revenue sharing. You should have received in your Friday memo some information. With the population changes, that we've seen. We've seen an increase of 400 people since the last census approximately. So we're going to see about, projection-wise, about $70,000 more from originally projected from this fiscal year that we're in to next fiscal year. So we're seeing an increase there. We'll also receive an extra payment in April of about $42,000. My plan is, as long as no one has issue with it, is to make an extra pension payment with it. Just to address that need. We have not received word yet as to how much we're going to receive from the excise tax yet. I'm anticipating it any day now. We are looking at, Betsy Davis and I are looking at, we had talked about this a couple of years ago, but it didn't happen. Switching the email handles. When we changed the city website handle a couple of years ago, we did have it set up basically in the background that we could switch on the emails to lowellmi.gov. We are looking at planning on doing that hopefully the next couple of months. The plan is that when we do switch it, we would stay with the old handles for about a year, so it gives us ample time to transition, and then we would move on to the new handle. One last thing, we did have an issue earlier this winter with the DPW. We had a situation where we were clearing snow off some banks on a number of streets in town, and the driver extended the blades too far and did some damage to some lawns up and down some streets. For example, Riverside, Elizabeth, Suffolk, those areas. There was some damage to the sign. So in the spring, we plan on, DPW is aware of that. They are planning to correct the issue. If you see issues on Hudson, those are not the cities. Those are the Kent County Road Commissions. Those are not ours. And that's all I have.
All right, any questions for Mike? No resignations, Susie, no appointments? Council comments, Leah? Marty?
I'm good, sir.
Jim?
I want to congratulate the Lowell boys wrestling team in 9 years in a row. It's an awesome feat, and they just continue to shine up there. I don't know how the girls ended up, were they finished second or runner up or something?
I think they had a girl place at the individual. I don't know about the team.
No, not for wrestling, but for something else. I thought they did this week for.
Oh, equestrian, right? Wasn't it equestrian?
I can't remember. So, sorry.
Cliff?
I'm going to plug the Wizard of Oz at the Lowell High School. Julie and I went to the show yesterday afternoon, and again, they blew us away. Something interesting for me anyway is I counted up all the kids that were involved, and my count's probably not accurate, but with the kids playing in the orchestra, cast, and crew, 88, I counted 88 students, and that's pretty good involvement when you compare it to a sports team or something like that. They just did an amazing job, and there's 3 more shows, and you can watch it virtually if you want to stay home.
Good. All right, I don't have anything, so I'll look for a motion to go to closed session for the purpose of discussing labor negotiations.
I'll make that motion.
Motion and a second. Sue?
Councilmember Groves,
Yes.
Mayor DeVore,
Yes.
Councilmember Salzweedl,
Yes.
Councilmember Yankovic,
Yes.
and Councilmember Chambers.
Yes. We're in closed session.